Hi everyone, this is Lee here, and I'm here with John today.
Hey, everybody.
We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart of how valuable this study information was.
Yeah, this is the data that you collected for us was, as Lee said, invaluable, and it's really going to help us uh, kind of plot a course ahead in the future.
We're here today many of you asked us about the results of the study, and so we're here to communicate the results. And we're going to really do three things today. We're first going to talk about the reason why we decided to do this study. Then John is going to talk about the criteria that we used in the study, and then he's going to go over, highlight the results. And so let's get started. So we want to talk about why we did the study. We're the data team and we work with data every day. Last year, we got this new event, and it's called when you go out caching and you get near a cache, it triggers an event. And it's called Close to Cache. We're going to look at our new signups and what we were seeing. And so this pie chart is showing all of our signups last year. And you can see there's two shaded orange areas in there, and they comprise about 30%. And that's all of the new signups that went out and got close to a cache. The light orange area represents those that successfully went out and they logged a cache. But then we had this group, the reddish orange area, they went out and they triggered a close to cache, and that was the end of it. And we'll call this group New Ghosts. When we started looking at the long-term engagement of the new ghosts that are shown here in red, and the loggers, we noted that the loggers had significantly more long-term engagement. It appeared if the new ghosters who triggered the close to cache, they went out and then they kind of went away. This led us to, from a data point of view, want to understand better what is the real world experience of a new user coming to our site and trying to go out and find a cache. What happened to these ghosters? What was their experience? And we realized we had some missing data.
Yeah, in addition to the data showing that we had some missing information, we also had some anecdotal evidence for that. And what you're seeing here is something that may have been one of the early seeds for this study, and that's we were doing kind of an analysis on cache owner activity around our state, and we were seeing places like this. This is Yakima in Washington State. Uh, the red dots are cache owners who have been out of the game for over a year. And you can see that virtually all of the cache owners in this area were absent from the game. That caused us to, a little bit of concern. Uh, on top of that, then a little bit after that, I moved from Seattle to Spokane, which is across the state. And I had been in Seattle since the game started. And so it kind of grew up around me. And I tended to find caches as they were published. When I moved to Spokane, that changed. I was finding caches that had been out for a while. I was saying to myself, wow, the cache owners in this area are much less attentive. The caches are worse. But I realized the people weren't different. It was just on average, I was finding caches that were on average much older than they were when I was finding them in Seattle.
Yeah, and finally, a few months ago, John and I met with our Google account managers, and they had told us they spent half a day out at a park called Kirkland, Washington, trying to find caches, and they couldn't find any. And so John and I really took to heart that we wanted to collect this data, and we wanted to present the findings to our management. because we want to make the game better. And so we embarked on this mission to do the study. And now John is going to talk about the criteria that we used, and then he's going to go into the results.
Okay, so first of all, we wanted to make sure that we had significance in the findings that we had. So we determined what was needed to have a representative sample. And we ended up getting what turned out to end up being over 3 times the data that we needed. So the information we're presenting to you here, we have 99.9% confidence in the results. We made sure the study focused on our core areas. We wanted, vibrant, active areas to be what we were looking at to be representative of the most active players. So we focused on the US, Germany, France, and the UK. Those regions account for almost 60% of all active caches in the world, and almost 70% of all of our premium members. The next step was reaching out and finding people to help us with this study, because obviously Lee and I couldn't go traveling the world and collecting the data on our own. So we reached out to players that we identified as active and engaged, people who had been playing for a while and played regularly. And you can see here some of the criteria we used. And now let's talk about what we found. The most striking thing, I think, that came out of this was that we saw 3 to 5 times higher DNF rates from what you, our experienced users, were finding around your homes than what we get in those same regions from DNF logs. In some cases, the DNF rate was over 20%. So you can perhaps imagine what the problems that might be encountered if people go out and 1 in 5 caches aren't there. Similarly, we found that the rate of DNFs increased as the average length of time that cache owners had been absent from the game increased. So in regions where the cache owners were on average absent for a longer period, had higher DNF rates. And lastly, along those same lines, the longer a cache owner is out of the game, the more likely we found that their cache led to a DNF. Cache owners who had been out of the game for 5 or more years had twice the DNF rate of the caches owned by those who were active in the past year. Now we're going to kind of talk about the flip side of all of this, and not about old caches and absent users, but new caches. One thing new caches mean is an engaged and active owner, because they've just been involved in getting their cache published. So they're there. But before we talk about those new caches, let's talk about our experienced members and why new caches are important. So we're defining an experienced user as someone who has been in the game for over 5 years. That group actually accounts for 2/3 of all of the finds in the past year. So clearly that group is very important to us. Now, in addition, what are they finding? Well, over 1/3 of all the caches that group finds are new caches that have been out for a year or less. That's striking when you compare it to what's actually available. Only 11% of the game field is new caches. The rest are all caches that are older than a year. So clearly, new caches are important to those people who are out there making the bulk of the finds. This shows you a little bit, another look at that activity that new caches get. When a new cache is published, the rate of find in the first couple of weeks is 8 times higher than what it is on average 6 months later. And it's even 5 times higher than what it is in just 3 months. So clearly, there's a big rush after publication. Those are the caches that get the most attention. That's when they get the most attention. And it's clearly those experienced users who are rushing out to get them. Now, we know that from that data anyway, that new caches are important, but we also know that in some areas of our core regions that things are very saturated. Here's a look at one example in Germany. It would be hard to find a good spot for a new cache when you have this level of saturation.
Yeah, thank you, John. John has done a great job highlighting one of the shocking areas, which was our DNF. But as we think of quality, uh, what we were able to get out of this study, which is so important, were some of the more nuanced aspects, such as the location. The study showed that 18% would not recommend a cache to a friend, and 7% were in a poor location. Those are the ratings of 1 star and 2 stars. 6% showed issues with the container, 21% showed a missing logbook, and 11% showed that coordinates that needed to be updated. So this factual information is valuable to us because we're able to take this to our management and have people start to figure out a solution. We want to just highlight and summarize what the study showed. Um, First off, we saw the DNF by rates by John, which showed us that our DNF data is complete. We rely on our DNF rates and we rely on our log data. It drives all of our tools, and so you know, when we have this missing information, it's very important for us to think about how we can begin incorporating this data. We saw that the DNF rates impact our new users, and when people have spent 15 minutes trying to find a cache and they can't find it, it's not a pleasant experience. John showed you how the cache owner engagement is directly tied to the DNF rate, and those owners who have been gone from the game for a long time had a higher DNF rate than those who were active. And then John showed you how the new caches drive engagement, as well as a number of other positive things. We presented this information to our management team last week, and without having this tangible information, we wouldn't have been able to get the level of attention to this game and the game board, and having this factual information has been just invaluable to our entire company, and we just can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, this again, very invaluable data. It really made an impact on our management team, and hopefully we'll see very good things come out of the results of this study.
We loved engaging with you, and please feel free to drop us a line at the data team at geocaching.com. We love to hear from you, and it was just such a pleasure, and we're humbled to have had the opportunity to engage with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.